On the surface, it looks like everything is going great. The economy is booming, inflation is cooling down, and interest rates are coming down too. But behind the curtain, things are not as they seem. Earlier this week, we got some very important data from the jobs market. Why is that a problem? Because these jobs do not offer benefits. No medical insurance, no retirement plan, no paid time off. And these jobs are being added at the expense of full-time jobs. For the last 3 months, for every 1 full-time job added to the economy, almost 2 part-time jobs were added. So what does that tell you? It tells you that businesses are still struggling to find workers. If they could, they would not be hiring part-time workers at the expense of full-time workers. They would rather have fewer workers on their payroll, even if it means lower productivity, because at least those workers would be full-time and they would provide more stability to the business. What's more, these part-time jobs are concentrated in low-paying sectors such as retail and food services. In other words, the jobs added are not particularly high-quality jobs. The US may be adding hundreds of thousands of jobs every month, but it's not translating into higher wages because most of these jobs don't pay very well. In fact, real wages are still falling. When adjusted for inflation, average hourly earnings are down 2.8% from a year ago. So people are working more hours for less pay. It's no wonder why so many people are quitting their jobs, or at least trying to. The Great Resignation is not over by a long shot. All of this points to a very important fact. The raw side of growth is not as strong as it seems. Yes, GDP grew at an annualized rate of 6.1% in the second quarter. That's the fastest economic growth in almost 2 years. But much of this growth was driven by inventory buildup and exports. Companies were just stocking up on goods in anticipation of higher demand during the summer. But now it looks like they may have overstocked. Retail inventories rose 2% in June, which is the biggest increase since 2020. People are still spending a lot of money on services, but they're cutting back on durable goods. That's why you're seeing so many retailers miss their earnings estimates. Their stuff just isn't selling. Now, sure, there's still plenty of demand in the economy, but it's not necessarily for stuff. With growth starting to slow and inflation still sticky, the Fed will likely keep interest rates higher for longer. And that's why